Be
Just
about
can't let go.
10,000 or something.
Okay, I
38.
appreciate it.
I work in,
Recording in progress.
Now for a 12-year total, we've got,
Right,
That
we
Mr.
just
Chair,
went
we
over
are
the
Saturday
recording.
before Thanksgiving, yes.
for breast cancer. And
Are you ready?
Yeah, seven
Yeah,
o'clock.
are you ready to start? 7 o'clock.
We'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, Brumman,
Here.
Horn. Here. Shulak.
Here,
And good to see you, sir.
thank you.
Van den Einde. Here. Lanterman here. I will encourage you all to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I'm very happy tonight to welcome our newest member to this commission, John Horn. John, welcome.
Thank you.
We are all, I know we're all looking forward to working with you. Could you take a minute and introduce yourself and tell us about yourself?
You bet. Well, first of all, I'm excited and honored to be a part of the Planning Commission, and I look forward to working with you all. A little background on me, I'm a 2-year resident of Corcoran. We live over in the Bellwether development, my wife and I. Prior to Corcoran, we raised our family over in Champlin, so not all that far away. I'm a civil engineer by trade, although I did retire here last summer. But I spent 35 years in the consulting engineering industry, so I spent a lot of time in my career sitting in meetings like this, planning commission meetings, city council meetings, but I was always on that side of the room, so it'd be a little bit different experience for me sitting up here. I hope that some of my experience can be an asset to the group here as we evaluate planning proposals and serve the city of Corcoran.
Well, thank you and welcome. Are there any recommended or requested amendments to the agenda tonight?
Mr. Chair, staff does need to continue the public hearing noticed for park dedication subdivision ordinance amendment. We will need a motion and vote from the commission to postpone that item to December 1st.
Okay, can I get a motion to postpone item 7B, the park dedication subdivision ordinance, to the December 3rd Planning Commission meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Open forum. So I'd like to open the floor to any members of the public, either in person or here in Zoom, that would like to address the commission on items not on tonight's agenda.
Mr. Chair, we just need to back up one step. We do have to formally approve the agenda as well.
Oh.
I apologize.
Okay.
So we just
Sure.
need to-
Okay, well, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Can I get a second?
Second,
Okay, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And then moving back to open forum, anyone joining us by Zoom, please raise your hand, utilizing the raise your hand function should be on your bottom menu if you're on your computer. Otherwise, anyone in the audience with us tonight can approach the podium to address the commission with any items not on the agenda. And at this time, Mr. Chair, no one is raising their hand online.
Okay. And welcome, folks. We just opened the public forum, so if there's anything that you would like to address with us, now's your opportunity, as long as it's an item not on the agenda tonight. Okay? All right, thank you. Okay. I don't need to close
No.
this, right? Okay. So are there any questions or comments on the minutes? And that's directed to the commissioners. No, okay. Can I get a motion to approve the October 6th Planning Commission meeting minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Can I get a second?
Second?
Okay, and a vote, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, new business.
I apologize. My pen closed it up. Audio?
We forgot to do last time.
Something's happening. It's, oh, yep.
We just began with a staff presentation, so that's what we're waiting for.
I apologize.
It's to get connected.
Thank you is working now. Okay, why is it? Okay, we might not have a slideshow, so. Working. No, it should just be turning on, but it's not turning green, so it's, and then it's, when it was green, it was saying it was searching, so I'm not gonna waste any more of our time, we'll just go through this the old-fashioned way. So, the public hearing item tonight is for the Volrath agricultural accessory structure for the property adjacent to 22903 Strahler Road. The agricultural building will have a footprint of 7,600 square feet, and it requires a conditional use as it is a principal structure on a property without a residence. We do allow that for specifically agricultural buildings when it's on an actively farmed parcel. And in this case, it is adjacent to a farmstead that is under the same ownership. Gerald Volrath owns 22903 Strahler Road, which is the farmstead, and then the larger parcel where this building will be constructed. He also has 1/3 ownership interest in that, as well as his grandson Trent Volrath, who is the applicant. So the application includes 3 certificates of compliance. One for an agricultural building with a footprint that exceeds 3,969 square feet. The total accessory structure footprint on this property will be 10,760 square feet of agricultural space, and that's why it's a certificate of compliance, because of the agricultural use rather than a conditional use permit. Metal siding and roof is proposed for the building, which again can be approved through a certificate of compliance, and it does meet standards. And then the sidewall height for, again, an agricultural building can be approved with a certificate of compliance. This building will have a sidewall height of 18 feet, and technically the building is in the front yard. But again, it meets the standards for the certificate of compliance. For the CUP, there are specific standards to allow an agricultural accessory structure as a principal use when it's adjacent to a farmstead under the same ownership. And staff reviewed these standards, as well as the general CUP standards provided elsewhere in the code. Overall, the application significantly complies with the CUP standards, with remaining concerns addressed as conditions of approval. So just a review of the main conditions of approval. The formal wetland delineation process must be completed before things can move forward, which means a notice of decision needs to be issued, and that is in the works. A revised survey must be submitted to address, the plans need to show the final wetland boundary as approved by Bowser, which is a state agency that looks at the wetlands, and then identify floodplain on the property. Right now, that's not shown, and there is data on Hennepin County that suggests there's floodplain, especially where he's putting the building. And then they also need to identify the flood protection elevation, and their plans need to show how they intend to expand their driveway to serve the proposed overhead doors on the many sides of the building, the 3 sides of the building where there'll be overhead doors. Additionally, the building plans don't currently reflect the proposed building materials. That was confirmed by the applicant verbally, so we will need the plans to just be quickly updated to confirm the specific building material. And then the applicant will need to sign an affidavit testifying the building will be used for agricultural purposes only. Additionally, the building must be constructed above the identified flood protection elevation. If they do use fill placed below the floodplain elevation, they will have to basically mitigate for that on the site elsewhere to allow for proper drainage. Additionally, the subject property must continue to be used for agricultural in tandem with the farmstead at 22903 Strahler Road as a condition of approval for the CUP. Oh, finally, any work completed within the floodplain must be reviewed and approved by the watershed. Once those are addressed, they will be able to move forward with the building. But that's all things that we can handle on the back end. As for discussion, no official public comments were received prior to the public hearing. Additionally, I'll add the structure does meet or exceed the 100-foot setback required for agricultural buildings. It is set back 150 feet from Strahler Road, but the commission may want to discuss whether a recommendation for landscaping is warranted to provide screening along Strahler Road, considering the size of the building. Staff recommends opening the public hearing and approving the draft resolution in your packet. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. I'll open the public hearing.
And then I believe they're all the applicant. Okay, I know Carrie, but I wasn't sure. So they're all here representing the applicant. Anyone joining us online, if you'd like to participate in the public hearing, please utilize the raise your hand function under the reactions menu. And at this time, no one is raising their hand.
Okay, thank you. And,
Oh, somebody raised their hand.
oh,
You might
Sir,
have to turn
please.
it on.
and please state your name for the
Oh,
record.
it should be turned on. Did it turn off?
We don't need to turn anything on in here.
No, I turned it on earlier. I don't know if it, why it wouldn't be on.
So many gremlins.
So that actually makes the mic worse.
I was gonna throw it on the floor.
Well, that might help. It looks like it is out of battery. Maybe,
But he can just,
we'll just
Stay
turn
right at my chair,
it. Yep.
but I don't trip up.
Might as well just use this microphone.
All right. Is this one working?
Yep.
All right. Mr. Chair, Planning Commission, thank you for letting me talk. My name is Dean Varenkamp. I live at 9310 Bechtold Road in Corcoran. I'm about a mile away from this property. Great farm, a lot of good things going on in there. I've been out there personally. I know in the past we've had a number of buildings built in this city for the purposes stated, not anything but what was on the property, and a lot of those things aren't true, but that's neither here nor there. I know they are out of capacity for farm equipment storage and those kind of things. It's a good look, it's in a good place. As staff made comments, there's some number of things, and the watershed is a big one. The wetland area and those kind of things are probably a possible concern, but not crazy. Where they're putting it, Yeah, it's in the front yard, but again, it's some of the places that we put some buildings, haven't been all that appealing, but this is a farmstead, full-blown, and I just wanted to let you guys know that. I don't know if any of you made a trip out to the site and stuff, but it's a full-blown egg farm, and they are going crazy, and they're doing everything they can to keep the rural in town. So I appreciate it, and I support it as a neighbor. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have anyone online?
Nope, no one else is raising their hand, Mr. Chair.
So can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Can I get a second?
Second?
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Good.
Yep.
So I'll start then. The applicant owns the 68-acre property with his grandfather. Is that you, sir? Okay. Well, welcome tonight. Thanks for joining us. And one other person. Because the parcel does not have a principal structure, CUP can only be granted if there is common ownership with an adjacent parcel. Now, because the applicant's grandfather owns the adjacent parcel with the farmhouse and has an interest in the 68-acre property where this structure will be built, that requirement is clearly met. I'm not sure, and I mentioned this to you earlier, I'm not sure who caught the detail of the city code 1030.020, but whoever did catch that and include that in the application, I appreciate your attention to details. I do not have any material comments or concerns with this application. The structure is large, though, and it is close to the pre-existing buildings. I see that staff notes that we may discuss landscaping, and in my view, landscaping is not strictly required for this project. And therefore, I think that we should not attach any additional conditions related to it in an approval. So with that, I'd like to hear from my fellow commissioners. Commissioner Brummond?
Yeah, this is my neighborhood. So I think that it fits very well with the surrounding buildings. I think I'm excited. I know I'm excited that you are pursuing farming. And so that makes me excited. I'm excited that you guys are doing so well that you need another building. I would also agree that I don't think that landscape requirements are fitting here primarily for a couple of reasons. One is that if the building is going to be used for livestock, then that is up to those who own the livestock to be concerned about what kinds of plants and potential edible things are around a building that livestock are housed in. But then also too, the look of the area, which is something that we have relied upon in the past in terms of whether it would be a requirement. I am always a fan of hedgerows living across from an alfalfa field. It's nice when you have something that can block, but I certainly don't think that that's necessarily a stipulation that we should put on, especially with the investment you guys have already made up to this point to get the building up. And I am curious, and this was more a question for staff, the natural resources map, when was that put in place, and do we know how often it's evaluated? And the only reason that I ask is that it is interesting to me that this shows up as a floodplain area, because it's dry as dry back there. So I'm not sure if it's something where it's cyclical. Obviously, it has a bearing in terms of decisions that need to be made, but it was more satiating my curiosity.
Sure, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Brummond, if we're talking about the Hennepin County map where the data was pulled by our engineer,
Yeah.
it definitely is not always correct. And that's why we're asking it to be confirmed, because
Okay.
if it's showing, it's enough for us to go off to suggest that there is floodplain on the property, especially where, in the vicinity of where he's proposing the building. If they go through the process and they say there is no floodplain,
Okay.
then we'll go from there. But at this point, there's enough evidence to suggest that there is floodplain.
Okay.
As far as how often Hennepin County updates it, I'm not certain on that.
Sure.
I could definitely look into it, but we do rely on their data extensively to provide us with at least a starting point when we're doing projects.
Yeah, no, that's great, thanks. And I know it's been dry, like really dry the last few years, and so it's also possible that it isn't always, that it's at first snippets of time, right? Like cyclical weather patterns or whatever. It was really just a point of curiosity.
Right, sorry, just to add, aren't they 100-year, like, if it's flooded in 100 years, then
It's
it's
considered a
considered in the
floodplain.
floodplain? Yeah, I think it's a 100-year floodplain.
All right, well, that is all I had. Otherwise, I would go with, well, I guess I had one question for the applicants, and that is there anything concerning about the recommended, the recommendations put forth by staff in order to make a approval? Is there anything that is concerning to you? No.
I have, like, some of this I did not know, like, some of the things that you were saying, so I feel like I need some more information about that you're following up on.
Okay, so it's all within, did you have a chance to review the staff packet?
I just got it yesterday, we were just talking about it.
Okay.
And so, the last I've heard is when we had the survey come out from the wetland, and they just talked about the delineation, and we're gonna meet with you, and we heard like, it's good, there shouldn't be any. So, just hearing a list of things, I need to learn more about that.
Okay. Yeah, we can definitely touch base with next steps after this meeting. That's not a problem. Not directly after this meeting, but we can definitely touch base next week on this and go over the remaining items. The floodplain came out of the engineering review, so that memo was made available to me last week as I was finishing the packet. So
So that's new.
Yeah.
That's new.
Yeah, fair enough.
Is the delineation fully complete, like you have all that information, or would that help solve the floodplain?
The wetland delineation is not a floodplain delineation. The wetland delineation is for, specifically, there is a difference between floodplain elevations and the wetland. But what we have for the wetland delineation is enough to move forward with the process. I believe it's just at this point, the waiting period before the notice of decision can be issued. So I believe everything is on track with that. It just needs to be finalized before things can move forward, that's all.
So the floodplain, is that something you guys handle, or we need to?
So it's not the same delineation process. You'll just have to talk with the surveyor to update the survey to show the floodplain, so he should be able to confirm that.
Thank you.
Yep.
So that's all I had.
So I was just, two things, I guess. So this principal use thing, is that because there could be a house on this property, but there isn't? It's starting with a building, is that what's meant by that?
Correct. So the principal use would be is a residence.
Okay.
And there is no residence on this parcel because it's on the adjacent parcel. That was
Sure.
what was farmsteaded. So, I don't know exactly when this exception came into play. I know it was specifically added to address this situation.
But that's what it meant, like if I bought a property and I put a building on before a house, that's.
You cannot do that in
Oh.
most scenarios.
Okay.
Only in this very specific scenario where it's in conjunction with an adjacent farm.
Sure. Interesting. And then I was curious about it said, subject property must continue to be used for agriculture in tandem. And so what if that property gets sold?
Well, that's exactly what it's trying to address. So the conditional use permit is being issued under the conditions that the properties remain in the same ownership. So if they were to sell the farmstead to a different party and that's no longer being farmed, technically this building should not be in existence, at least without getting a residence on the property as a
And
principal use.
There'd probably be a variance, some other process would kick in then probably.
Yeah, we'd have to deal with it at that time. So
Okay.
essentially, if they, so I'm less concerned of it being sold within the family.
Yeah.
So as long as they're using it in tandem with each other perpetually, then the CUP could stand protection.
Interesting. Oh, that was it. I just had a couple questions on that. Thanks.
Thank you. I don't have any concerns about the structure, the appropriateness of the structure. My concerns or questions relate back to the floodplain issue, because based upon the floodplain maps, if indeed the structure falls within the 100-year floodplain, the choices would either be to mitigate that floodplain someplace else on the property or move the structure. I'm just curious if potentially the structure could get moved because of the floodplain issue, if in fact the floodplain is correct.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Horn, I'm sorry. The city engineer allowed for that flexibility if they were to choose to move the building outside the floodplain, but the floodplain is so extensive, it'd be really far south and probably would not be practical. It does make a lot more sense to have the building located near where the driveway exists today and the other structures. So we think it's likely they'll have to, if they can't stay above the identified elevation and they have to fill, they will have to mitigate it elsewhere on the site, yes.
Yeah, so for the applicant, the issue would be if indeed you have to place fill within the floodplain, you just have to find someplace else on your property to excavate out the earth to be able to restore that floodplain storage someplace else.
Exactly. Thank you. You put that in great terms.
Commissioner Shulak?
No questions, just a comment that after years of reviewing new neighborhoods and subdevelopments and subdivisions and things, it is refreshing and good news to me to be able to vote on a project that maintains the agricultural spirit of this city. And I just love the generational aspect of it, and I wish you all the best with this project.
So, folks, before I close up our deliberations, I failed to give you an opportunity specifically to address the commission. Are there any questions for us before I close our discussions? Yes, sir.
Can I just give you a little history of the property and how long I've been there?
Sure.
Or doesn't that pertain to you?
I love to hear the story, so go for it.
We would like to hear it.
We're going to be done about midnight.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jerry.
We gotta go back. My father purchased this farm and mother in 1941. So I keep thinking in about 18 years, it's gonna be in the family name 100 years.
Wow.
And anyway, when my father died and passed away, I bought the dairy farm over. But my parents were dairy farmers and chicken farmers. Well, anyway, took the farm over, and there's been dairy on that farm until 7 years ago when the barn burned down struck by lightning, which my other son, Jason, who couldn't make it tonight, took over from me. And my son Jason and Jeff are my two sons. They would be the third generation. Trent would be the fourth generation on that 80-acre farm. And I think that's very important to me and our family, that you have somebody to follow it up. That's what my dad's intention was. He wanted me to take over the farm, and when he passed away, he said, Jerry, this year. My other two brothers didn't want nothing to do with it. So there's a lot of history. And also I got to tell you, I was born on that farm. The doctor come to the house at that time in 1942. So I have a lot of death for myself and my family, and I watched every tree and every fence post go down, or it's been tiled. That's common on any farmland, but we're in a vicinity on Strader Road, which I'm glad we are now, because to farm, you gotta be very careful going out on the road right now. So we downsized after barn fire, and you just gotta appreciate that we got something left like that in Corcoran to see.
Right.
And I got neighbors that still farm a lot of, the land in that area, and I'm not against rooftops, don't get me wrong, but it's coming. And I understand that being an old felder, but I just hope that this can go a long ways yet. This homestead. But this is my homestead and my family, and I like working with it.
Yeah.
Well, he's lived there he's 80 years old, he's lived there for 78 years, so.
My 2 years I didn't live there, I was in the military. So I got a lot of history there, and they're following it up, and my grandkids, when they were in 4-H, we had cows, and they took them to the fair, so there's a lot of learning, and you know the rest of the story, so I just wanted to view that out with you people, and thank you for considering this.
Well, we appreciate that history, you know, we're used to just, you know, reading documents and applications, and I appreciate the human aspect of your story, so thank you. I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions, comments before I close our discussion? No? Okay. Can I get a motion to recommend approval of the draft resolution approving the CUP for an agricultural accessory building as a principal use on the subject property?
I'll make that motion.
Can I get a second?
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, congratulations.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
just real quick, that's a recommendation to the council.
It's a recommendation to the city council to approve the application.
And then the council meeting that this will be at is,
November 21st, it's a Monday night, in just a couple weeks.
that comes in front of the rest of us.
And I hope, if you're able to attend the city council meeting, I hope that you share your story with them as well.
It's short.
Sounds
I'm not
good.
good at talking. I don't do this every day.
Well, you know, you did pretty well, so don't sell yourself short there, sir.
Thank you, I just got a lot of time spent there, and
Yeah.
enjoy seeing the younger generation kind of interested in agriculture, because we still need farmers.
Yeah, we do.
We gotta eat.
It's a lot of work, but it's rewarding. Some days you ask yourself that, but everybody does that already.
Well,
But
thank
you.
thank you again, sir. I appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
You're good.
Yep. Have a good
That's it.
day.
Welcome to stay.
All right.
Good night, good night,
We'll
folks.
talk shortly, yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Do any of you have any questions of staff about updates or the status of previous projects?
No.
No? Are there any planning project updates that staff would like to share with us?
I don't have anything off the top of my head. I believe that list is fairly conclusive. I can't remember exactly. It's been a long 2 weeks. I can't remember exactly what may have changed since I wrote the update that went to the city council last week. But yes, I think that's pretty comprehensive. We may, I believe in December, we're talking about, or not talking about, in December, we will likely have a zoning ordinance amendment for accessory dwelling units come in per a resident who has submitted for a zoning ordinance amendment. Is there, and then Pioneer Trail Industrial Park, we anticipate that's another industrial planned unit development in Platt. We are anticipating that to come in in time for December as well, too.
Is that the preliminary plat?
Yeah,
Yes.
preliminary plat and preliminary PUD.
Okay, all right, and where is that proposed for?
That one's 55 and
55.
Pioneer Trail.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. Has that been here before? Okay, all right, I thought that sounded familiar.
I did have a question though, on one, I was just what it is. Number 23 was the building rights appeal. What is that? What's a building rights appeal?
Yeah, so in our rural residential area, the overall density is supposed to be 1 in 10 acres. However, that isn't necessarily the best way to develop land. It's usually for the purposes of infrastructure. It makes sense to have parcels closer together. While we still have 10-acre lots, it's not necessarily the best use of land overall. So as a way to allow for smaller lot sizes, I believe back in the 80s, they implemented development rights. There's been changes, but at this point, it's awarded based on 1 in 10 acres, as long as you haven't already exhausted building rights on the property. So that application will go to city council. They believe they have an additional building right that isn't reflected on our map as it currently stands.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. I remember we had a different way, one of those before where we were looking at moving a building right to the adjacent lot.
Yep.
So they're appealing for another right that they think should be theirs.
Essentially, yes, yep.
Any other questions?
The Corcoran Farms Business Park, I know that was a big discussion as a part of this meeting last month, as well as at the council meeting last week. I recall that was gonna go back to council on the 21st of November. Is that still the intention, or what's the status?
That was actually going to be my question for council update, was it did get tabled, and was it getting tabled because of the update to the buffer zone ordinance? No. Okay.
I'll let her talk and then I'll give you my single opinion. You want me to give my single opinion first?
Yeah.
As you guys recommended, and that was one of the things I wanted to talk about to you guys, you recommended denial for it being a PUD. Okay? We are still looking at it and examining it to see if we want to still flip it or change it to a PUD for the light industrial that it's at. So a ton of questions came out of the meeting, the council meeting. The developer has gone back to go after those things, building heights, setbacks, added screening, all kinds of things. So just, it's gonna be a little bit, there's a lot of discussion, a lot that needs to happen for all 5 of us to say, yes, we wanna go to a PUD. The frustration from previous planning commissions, the current planning commission and stuff, everything comes in as a PUD. I think that frustration was heard loud and clear at the last planning commission meeting. The one thing that I would love to encourage the planning commission is, instead of it doesn't meet, it doesn't whatever, I would rather hear what would it take and what are your thoughts? And I think council and the mayor would like to hear the same thing. What would it take, or what would it mean to you to make it a recommendation to the council of a PUD? I'm just as guilty of it back in the planning commission days. What are we getting for this? I mean, I would love to see a list of all of the things that the the city of Corcoran would get related to a PUD. And again, when I was on the planning commission and then you guys doing the same thing, this doesn't just meet the requirements of a PUD. Make suggestions. What else would you like to see? And then your recommendation for denial would go to the council with those recommendations and more things, more tools in our toolbox to say, yes, we would go to a PUD, but it has to be, what is the city getting out of it? What are the benefits to the city? If that makes sense. Am I making sense on what I'm saying?
I think, in my opinion on that is, okay, for instance, the townhouses, and we were trying to figure out how to, should they be townhouses?
Yeah.
Maybe a little less of a, from my perspective, concern. If I have a piece of property and we have code that says something shouldn't be this close to my property.
Right.
And we're like, oh, it's gonna be actually a lot closer to your property, but we're gonna get a park over there. At that point, I don't think we should allow that stuff. Right, because I'm now actually impacting as citizens because of
I think that's what.
Yeah,
that's
that to
what
me
I
would be my
wanted
guiding
from the
principles
council.
on that.
And being on both sides recently, I think the planning commission can make more of those suggestions, okay? When I started talking about the development and such, I was concerned about, help me Kendra, size of buildings, height of buildings, the distance from the borders, those kind of things, and I was told those were actually per code. on Corcoran Farms, as far as the closeness to the residential side.
The building setbacks were, but the
Everything-
parking was not,
Yeah.
and the loading docks were
So the
not.
building
loading
setbacks
docks.
were right. Again, the other things going in with those buildings are an issue, but I think you guys did a good job saying, no, we don't recommend changing it to a PUD. But what kind of ideas and thoughts? There's a lot of them up there. I had a lot when I was up there. What would make it
Acceptable.
acceptable to flip to a PUD in your mind? And I think that's what I'm searching for. I want a reason to flip to a PUD before I just say yes as being a council member and such. But I think, Mark, you said it very well last meeting. There's a whole lot of smart people sitting on this planning commission. There's been smart people before, but the creativity and such that I see here, and welcome Commissioner Horn. Nice to meet you and stuff, and your background was intriguing to me to have those kind of things. I think it's nice to have that side of our public servants and such being available to give that up and stuff, and the massive check that you receive at the end of the year, thank you for volunteering. But that's what I'm saying. Instead of just saying, no, it doesn't meet, I don't think staff, I don't think Kendra and her group, I don't think anybody can come up with an idea of what would be a good reason. I don't think those details are there. They're very broad. And it'd be nice to see everything that the city would be getting related to changing this to a PUD. I'd like to see more details. I'd like to know and understand if it's sewer, water, streets, improvements on Larkin, those kind of things. What are the values, those kind of things, number one. Commissioner Brumman, your comments about landscape and those kind of things, your background there is huge to us. What would make it worthy of flipping or changing it to a PUD? That's what I'm saying.
Sure, and I appreciate that, because I do feel like sometimes it's not helpful to just hear no. I do think sometimes there's not enough that could be given to make it make sense in a
Exactly.
particular area. And there's been a lot where I've wondered, do I feel that strongly? But I was just driving on 50 again today and coming up on the city park, and I'm thinking, we're really gonna put, like, just thinking, imagining, because a lot of these warehouse type complexes, and this is not a time to talk about it, but they're coming up on 610, 169. They are in these large areas. Is this really a place that it fits? And is there enough of a benefit that the city could get for us to make it make sense there? So I really do hear you, and I will do my best to bring forth ideas. I'm just not so sure on this one if there's
One of the
anything
things that I brought up was they are not going after those kind of industrial parks, the 40 to 60 foot
Sure.
building and such.
Yeah.
It is light industrial. Didn't get any specifics and such.
Okay.
One of the things I asked, the large building, building 5, is there a way to cut that up, chop it up? It's just the thought and idea is this would be the max. Building heights, those kind of things, they're wanting to come. Obviously they have people interested. Would it be a Amazon, those UPS? No, it is not that kind of deal. It's not. But again, if we approve the PUD and those kind of things, we still have the right to go back and approve, I think it's 5 different lots, 5 different buildings. Would the planning commission still have options to talk if we do flip to a PUD, each building development and stuff that's being brought in? Is there input there, or is it just comes to the council? Point of order question.
Mr. Chair?
Please.
Council member, again, the applicant did get tabled, just to be clear on that, to come back in theory at the 21st meeting. If the council approved the request, it would have conditions, likely.
Yeah.
And then the revised plans would come back to the planning commission for PUD final plan and final plat. But again, at that point, it's like a final plat, you're reviewing for compliance, and so there's not
Opportunity.
negotiation room at that stage. This is the council's opportunity to negotiate and attach conditions, and then your role will be to make sure they've met those conditions.
I thought it didn't go back to the commission for final plat, the final PUD anymore. Did we take that out? It's just the-
I'm sorry, we did change that, Natalie, I'm sorry. It does
Okay.
not come back, right?
Yeah.
You made that amendment, I
Yeah,
forgot.
typically, final plats do not go back to the planning commission, it goes to council. And we recently made the change that if the recommendation is that it meets the, it's in compliance with the preliminary approvals, it does not go back to planning commission, it just goes to council
For
to
the
follow the
confusion.
same procedure as the final plat. Because we found it didn't really make sense to do a rubber stamp, basically, is what.
It streamlined the process.
Yes, exactly. So this is the chance to make those
I
recommendations.
was thinking that even more of a reason to, if we have input now,
Sure, sure.
this is what
Yep.
we would like to see as future negotiations if the decision is to say yes to a PUD. I'd love to have your opinions and thoughts on record. So,
I'd be happy to give you my opinion. So what I'm hearing is you'd like to say yes, and the council would like to say yes.
No, don't put that out
Well,
there, Mark. We
well-
are openly listening to, but no one is even making those comments.
Because you're asking us for recommendations for items that would turn this into a yes, which is why I'm hearing yes from
Asking
you.
for what your thoughts are.
Okay,
I keep hearing from planning commissions, when I was on a planning commission, no, this does not meet any of the things, with no suggestions on ideas to meet it.
in order to say yes.
In order to recommend yes.
Right,
What I'm
which is
saying
what I
is,
said.
I cannot read your guys' mind.
Okay,
I'd rather you say it up front than said no, instead of no, this does not meet it, this does not hit any of it.
sure.
You have thoughts, ideas, and stuff,
Well,
share them. So get them out there.
okay, so I'll continue then. So it sounds like you're looking for feedback from us as to how to make a better deal. And what I
If
think,
you
so
wanna
if
say
I
that,
could
you can say
finish,
that.
so if I think, I'm definitely saying that. A better deal would be, and my recommendation would be, for the city council to follow the code and deny the application because it does not conform with our city's law, nor does it conform
Then that's
with the
what you
residents who attended.
And that's
So
what,
my recommendation would just be to follow the law. So,
but there's gonna be many, many more coming. If you're gonna follow that, so be it. But we've got other council members that if this were, or the commissioners, if this happened, make ideas, make suggestions. I'm not looking for a reason to rubber stamp and say yes. I would love to have everything come to us as an ordinance and those kind of things. We could abolish the planning commission because we wouldn't need recommendations because everything would conform, and we really wouldn't need a council or a mayor then. But that is not how how cities work. We're putting this stuff through, we're opening things up, we're getting a whole bunch of people sharing their thoughts and mind.
well, since you mentioned not having a planning commission, I wonder sometimes if maybe I know by law you need to have a planning commission, but sometimes it seems as though you don't need one when you don't follow our recommendations.
Again, if we were to follow every recommendation, why would we need a council then, Mark? I mean, we can debate this for hours, and I don't want to. I want to get home.
Okay.
I just, open your minds, guys. And I respect Mark saying ordinances, that's it, no more PUDs, no more anything. I understand that. That's one person's mindset. We have 4 others, we have 5 people on the council and the mayor. And if everybody opens up and thinks openly, I think we can come up with some really good thoughts and ideas on to make this place continue to be a good place to live.
If I could just follow up on one final point, and then I'll recess. My recommendation is just to follow the law. And if you can't approve this with the law as it's currently written, then change it. Then change the law.
You continually say laws, and these are ordinances.
City code is the city law.
Code are, in my mind, and this is where we can differ and we can get into debate, it is a recommendation. This is what we like to follow. We have variances, we have ordinances, we have PUDs, we have conditional uses, all of
Right.
those things.
Right.
All things that vary from code.
Right. So is code,
It's not gonna be black and white.
is
And that's
it,
the
so
last
city
thing.
code is just follow it if you like it? Or don't follow it if you, it's like, I want to
Again,
understand.
Your opinion is respected, but if one of you folks needed to vary something from code, you'd come and ask.
Right.
If it's reasonable, would you approve it? Or would you say no to yourself?
I think where I kind of was landing on, just in the time I've been here, we've recommended plenty of PUDs
Yep.
for approval. This one was just really bad.
This is a big one.
But
Well, and big, but it was just, there was too many, the variances were not reasonable, really, and I think we all landed on that it just didn't make sense. The other ones you've recommended them as well, and I don't like it, but I'll recommend it. So I think, I don't know, I guess, I hear what you're saying, I land where you were landing as well. At this one, I don't know that there was anything we could do. We landed in, just follow the code for this one, and then we'll be fine.
I think, though, in all fairness, like, there was the recommendation, one of the setbacks that they had requested some flexibility from was the setback along the new road that would have been where the buildings faced each other. And I had made the suggestion that that is an area where I would be willing to have flexibility because it would be less important to have, you know, the standard setback on that road where the buildings are facing each other rather than the residential properties that they're facing across Larkin. And I think that is what I hear that council would appreciate because it's more eyes and more suggestions, more ideas for solutions, rather than like, and in all fairness, it was an opportunity that we didn't get to hear from the developer, so there wasn't some of the asking back and forth to bring additional understanding. So we can chalk this one up to, thanks for the reminder, let's continue to provide really good feedback in addition to the motions that we make. So that if it does go a different way, because it might, then there are more suggestions and ideas to bring about a complete result. I guess that's what I'm hearing. And I am with you that sometimes it doesn't make sense, but I think that this is also about us utilizing our voice, right? Like, we talk often about how this is a privilege, but it's also a great responsibility because there are others who would long to sit here but can't because they're working 2 full-time jobs. And it's a representation of those hardworking people as well. And so let's use this opportunity not to just, dig our heels in, but to really be doing our complete job.
Well, yeah, and I think the philosophy of, I get this separate, the two groups, right, or even, I guess you get the parks one too, but where might have different views on what does it mean to run a city. Some would say minimum 10-acre lots, right, that was the rule for many years. And some would say we really need minimal development. Some say let's develop as much as we possibly can to get more tax base or something. I don't really know, there's just different philosophies, I guess, and so wherever we end up landing on that as far as, we have a code, so if they, like we talked about that one, if they comply with code, it's going through, there's nothing we can say about it, that's what we decided. If it's not, then our philosophies come into play, I think, where we have a little bit of our voices can be heard.
Absolutely.
And so that's where I guess, if certain people, let's say on the council are here, are like, I think we should always approve development, why not? And others are like, wait, what's the point of, do I need it? Do we need it in Corcoran? No. So if they can comply, great, we'll accept it. If not, then we won't. Maybe that's okay, but maybe that's not, right? I think I just landed that the philosophies could be a little different and would drive those decisions. And I don't know where the city council members' land, but if their approach, if many of them are, I'd like to say yes to every single development that comes here, because I think more development is gonna make this a better town for everybody, then you're gonna lean that direction, I guess. I kinda lean to maybe not quite so much.
And my input on myself is, would it be something I would want to see in this town? I have no political gains, no anything related to anything here. What will make this nice? In that situation related to Corcoran Farms and such, that property was previously medium density, which is 6 to how many units per acre?
5 to 8.
5 to 8.
5 to 8. So if a developer were to come in, would we want 560 dwellings on that? I don't understand, there's nobody I can ask that why was it changed? Why did the council and that mayor want it changed from medium density to more industrial? I can make an assumption it's our current industrial serves its purpose, but it isn't all that, in my mind, eye appealing, so to speak. It's kind of hodgepodge put.
Yeah.
This would be a wall or a border, and then we roll into residential. That's only assumption on my part. Again, my biggest thing, the farm, the people that owned it are just what you saw this evening. It's a farm that was purchased back in 1940 and in the same family for all these years, and no one wants to farm anymore. They have a right to sell. A developers come in, we want to buy, but we want to change it to a PUD, they come and request. If we say no, they gotta follow ordinances. I mean, that's the way it is. They're asking.
One of the comments or questions that came up at the council meeting, I can't remember if you asked the council member Baron Camper, if it was somebody else. Somebody asked the question, okay, the property's zoned industrial. They could go develop it in accordance with the industrial zoning without having to go through a PUD process. And the question was, well, what would that look like? And
I asked that. It'd be nice to see what it would look like if everything was.
As I sat and listened, some of the concerns that I think got raised would still be concerns even if it wasn't a PUD, because it would still be an industrial development. So I'm wondering if there was be a very simple schematic. This is if it was developed in accordance with the current codes, this is what it would look like. And these are the variances, these are the things that are being asked for extra as a part of the PUD. Because I think some of the things that are concerning people would be an issue regardless of whether it was a PUD or not.
And what came to the council and those folks, they're worried about lighting, those kind of things. We have ordinances related to monolighting, headlights shining on neighbors. I'm not crazy about one in, one out, an entrance in, an entrance out with an emergency entrance on the other side. All of those things are things I think you guys may have the same concerns about. So I'd love to hear it, but to not just, but you guys recommended no. Don't be offended if 5 other people listen more, have ideas, have thoughts, and we can come up with a good plan, but it has to be something, in my mind, that the city's got to benefit greatly out of this, to go to a conditional use permit, or PUD, excuse me. Too many acronyms. God, I leave a building that's got so many, and then I come here, so. You guys know and understand what I'm saying, I hope. And I don't know any one of the 5 of us up there that are saying yes or no yet. We are listening very openly too. And I have no idea if a decision will even be made at the next meeting.
Well, and I'd like to add that I've been on this commission for 3 or 4 years now. And in that period of time, this commission has turned over almost 2 times with its members. So I guess I've outlived a few.
And you lived here the longest of all of us, I think.
Yeah. But anyhow, I think I'm fully tenured enough to, and qualified to say this. It's, from the very beginning, it's never been my understanding that it's my responsibility to help the people who are applying for something. It's not my responsibility to help them get it.
Right.
We have the planning that goes on. They work with the individuals on their projects, and they say, okay, if this is what you want, this is what you're going to have to do. By the time it comes to this commission, I've already read all of the materials, and I've pretty much made up my decision how I'm going to vote. But I get frustrated with the amount of potential negotiations. Well, if you sweeten the package a little bit, then you will, yeah, okay, we'll get your project in and everything. When we're presented with a project, I'm assuming that it's the last word. And so when we have a 45-minute discussion about, well, they're not really meeting these criteria, and so, you know, maybe we can just kind of run out of bounds real quickly here and come back in, or whatever. It's frustrating, and I don't think I have to present a whole lot of reasons why I'm voting against it. If I'm against it, if I don't like the project itself, I don't like it, and I'm not going to, my vote isn't going to be bribed in any way by saying, well, if we get another acre down at the park with swing sets and things. No, I mean, that should all be taken care of before it reaches us. And I think one of my other frustrations is, you know, you can't always get what you want. I mean, it's true. But the amount of times that I and others have voted down projects and we're an advisory committee, and it's not like I think that the council should vote every time according to the way I vote. But it's frustrating when we bring up valid concerns and they're not listened to intently or voted on in that way. So, amen.
Thank you.
Good comments. Very cool.
Commissioner Schulak, could I ask you a question?
Sure.
Would you agree with me that any landowner can sell their property whether we want them to or not? Do you see our role as preventing someone from selling their property?
No.
Neither do I. Thank you. Any other questions for Councilman Varenkamp? Thank you for your comments.
You bet.
Let's see, any other business? 2023 priority setting discussion, I see that here.
Correct, Mr. Chair, Planning Commission. Typically, in the past, a summary of work completed in the prior year, as well as a list of what the Planning Commission sees as priorities in addressing our code, have been forwarded to the council in March. In speaking with our new city administrator, she would like for that discussion to happen much sooner so we can forward our recommendations and priorities to the council in January when they are setting the work plan for the year, so we can have it be involved in the discussion much sooner. Just because by March, they usually have a plan set in place, and so it's harder for us to deviate from that. So wanted to start that discussion. It does not have to be a long discussion. We have a whole nother meeting before we really should have something nailed down. The two items that I identified just based on some previous conversations, some changes that we wanted to see and had forwarded an informal recommendation to the council, was cleaning up the ADU requirements, specifically providing clarity in the requirement for an accessory dwelling unit to be attached or above a garage. And then also a recent discussion about administrative approvals for legal nonconformities to allow for basically the Slay Bob variance application to have been approved administratively going forward for similar situated properties. So those are the two I remember. Wanted to see if you remembered anything else or if there's any other ideas that the commission had that we could add.
May I? I do have some ideas, and I recognize that the ideas that were listed already came out of work that had come before the commission in the previous year. And the one that I wanted to touch on doesn't come out of anything that's come before the commission, but it has come up from residents, and that is the farm animals or non-traditional animals. The requirement right now is that you have to have a half an acre to have any farm or non-traditional animal. After sitting on the commission for a little over a year, we have not seen nearly, like, the majority of the houses that are being built are on less than half an acre. And so my concern is that we're really having this ordinance opportunity, and yet the buildings that are being built don't even allow for that as an opportunity. So I wanted to perhaps revisit that as a possibility to allow more residents to be producers of their food rather than just consumers. And then that led into a general question. This maybe is for a yearly training rather than an issue that the planning commission would go on. But I feel like I don't have enough of an understanding of the relationship of homeowners associations to the city council. It feels to me like all of the neighborhoods going up have homeowners associations, even the ones in the rural residential neighborhood, yet the homeowners association write-up or whatever, doesn't come before the commission or the council at any point in the development. And so is that anything, I just want to understand, is it anything that anyone from a city perspective gets to have any buy-in on? Is there anything that the city can say, hey, this is far more restrictive than our city code, therefore, we are going to say you don't get to put it in there? And I guess the question comes more because they're national builders. So the homeowners associations are sticking around a lot longer than, they used to in Maple Grove. You would see them when the neighborhoods would be developed, and then nobody would eventually maintain the homeowners associations, and they would kind of disband. And so I just want to make sure that I understand the role of that. I personally don't necessarily understand why someone would subject themselves to another level of governing body, but it is common. And so I just want to make sure I'm understanding its place and if there's any connection or ability that a city has to speak into those.
Thank you, Commissioner Berman. I'll just add, I'm in an HOA, and the reason why I decided to have another governing body is because they're taking care of my snow and my grass so that I don't have to. But yeah, we could, I think a training on HOAs and the limitations that the city has with those governing documents, we could definitely do something like that, yeah.
Because I do know that at least the residents who've asked about the farming non-traditional animals, I mean, their greater battle is going to be with their homeowners association than with the city. But
So is that like to have chickens if you have?
right, quail is a really big one in suburban residential neighborhoods right now because they're not as loud nor as messy as chickens. And so, but even technically a rabbit is considered a farm / non-traditional animal. And believe it or not, with the diversity in this neighborhood, rabbits are not an uncommon meat to eat. And so, anyway, it's just things that we need to think about.
Mr. Chair, if I can jump in.
Please.
I used to have somebody that think they needed a rooster to be able to have eggs. You can have a whole lot more quiet chickens if you don't have a rooster. And the likelihood of evolving into a noise ordinance and those kind of things, again, you don't need a rooster to have eggs. It's hard to understand sometimes what some people say. Thank you. I love the discussion, you guys. Good.
The ADU issue, it looks like was also on the list for 2021, so I don't know if that was addressed in 2021 and needs to continue to be updated. But there's also an article in the Star Tribune today on ADUs across the metro area, and how a bunch of municipalities are starting to reevaluate that. And I think Minnetonka and Plymouth, as two adjacent communities, both have recently updated their ADU requirements. So it seems like that's a hot topic around town, at least other people
Yeah, I saw
are
that.
addressing the same issue.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I saw that.
And I will add, Mr. Chair, if I could, that we did receive, like I said a little earlier, we received an application to reevaluate some of the aspects of our ADU ordinance. So I'll probably tack that on in there. But at the same time, I don't know, I don't believe I'll have to go through, I don't know if that's what he's necessarily requesting. So I would be like his request versus my request, but knowing that that's the commission's goal, I can kind of get it all in one, so.
Thank you. And I'd like to take just 1 second. I like learning in my role here. Commissioner Shulak, could I just ask you a couple more questions? Because I know you've been here much longer than any of us have been. It's my understanding that you're a reserve with the city, correct?
Yes.
How long have you been a reserve?
Next week, it'll be 4 years.
How many?
4 years.
Wow, okay, well, and thank you. In your role as a reserve officer, is part of your role to enforce city code?
Absolutely.
And in your experience as a reserve officer here, and you enforce city code, is city code optional or is it to be followed?
There's no option. It needs to be followed.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for clearing that up for me. Let's see. Is there any other priority setting discussion, or is that done?
That is up to you.
Okay.
I don't know if we heard from Commissioner Vanden Ninety. Don't know if we've heard priorities
I don't
from
have anything
Shulak
else.
or yourself, Mr. Chair. But that's okay if you don't have it. Okay.
Okay, all right, thank you. And let's get to the Commissioner Liaison Calendar, November 10th. I have Commissioner Horn. Are you able to attend that?
I am, yep.
Okay, excellent. Commissioner Shulak, I see that you're scheduled to attend the ever-important November 21st meeting. I see that that's in red. Is that because that's a Monday?
Yes.
Okay. Are you able to attend that?
Yes,
meeting,
I am.
sir? Great, thank you. I might attend with you. Commissioner Vanden Ninety,
I'm good.
are you good for December 8th?
Yep.
Excellent. Commissioner Drummond, I see that you're scheduled for December 21st. Are you still available?
I am.
Excellent, thank you. And going out into next year, this is way out, but Commissioner Horn, you are currently scheduled for January 12th, and I am scheduled for the January 26th meeting. If any of you run into scheduling issues, please just let me know, and if I'm available, I'm happy to fill in if I can. Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Shulak?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Great, thank you.